Hello and welcome to Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And of course, who doesn't want a better life? I know you do. I know I do. I know pretty much everybody I know does. And so that's what we're here for. For the next hour, we'll pick one thing to talk about that can hopefully help us all build a better life. We hope it resonates with you. And we hope that it keeps you around here for this episode and for other episodes to come. We've got plenty to choose from. I am JD Winnikin, always here to start this off, because Ashley always makes me do it. And the other person, of course, is Ashley Knievel, my co-host, my friend, my business partner, so many things. Ashley, delighted to have you here on this Christmas Eve.
I know. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, Merry Christmas to all of you out there who celebrate. And we appreciate you taking some time on this holiday to spend some time with us. And yes, it is Christmas Eve, so we are going to talk about something Christmas Eve-y. I guess Christmas Eve.
I like that.
Yeah, I guess we're going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about today is a word we hear a lot at this time of year, hope, right? The holiday season is a hopeful season, right? We hear that all the time.
It really is.
It's on cards, it's in shows, it's, the themes of so many different things, right? And all good things, right? The hope is, when we think about hope, we are like, okay, yeah, that's a good thing. What we're going to talk about today is not that it's a bad thing, okay? But let's talk about what it actually is. And when we talk about building resilience in life and building a better life, hope can be a really important ingredient, right, in it. But it's interesting. For example, Ashley, did you notice when we did that values assessment all those weeks ago, hope is not one of the values?
Now that you mention it, I do recall it was not on there.
It's not on there. It is a state of being. It's not really a value, right? A value could be something like belief or faith or something like that, of which hope is a part of that. But it's kind of its own thing, right? And, how with hope, it can become easy to drift into things like being passive, for example, or ending up in denial or waiting for someone else to rescue us or something like that, depending on what it is. So what I thought we'd talk about is hope in a real sense, right?
Okay.
About that. Right, because I know you and I have had some conversations about these things before, right? And when we build better lives, particularly when we develop resilience, hope becomes something that we don't always have to keep thinking about or relying on, because we're staying present, and when we stay present, we move forward. Because hope is very future focused.
Yes,
right? It's very future focused. So, and while that's not necessarily bad, we don't want it to get in the way of what we can do in the moment. How's that sound?
I like that.
Okay.
I was going to say, you came up with this topic, actually. If I recall, you and I were in a conversation, and this one came into mind for you. Was there anything particular that brought this to your mind, or why was hope in this present sense?
Well, there were a lot of ingredients that come to it, but when this is a time of year where, people start listing all the things they hope for in the new year, right? All the things they're praying for, all the things they're wishing for. And all those things matter, right? All those things that we connect to that are bigger than ourselves can be really important. The thing I can get frustrated by sometimes, though, is things like when people pray for world peace, right? For example, not because, we can get cynical and say, is world peace really possible? Okay, that's a debate we can have some other time. The thing is, though, how many people are actually acting to make that happen, right? It's one thing to hope for it. It's another thing to then say, what can I do to help that happen? Now, I can't necessarily make it happen for the whole world, but what can I do right here? Or how can I be involved in this? What does that even look like? How is that realistic, right? To me, the wishful thinking sometimes can take us or separate us away from the action we can take. Similar to what we talked about last week. We talked last week about setting intentions for the holidays rather than just being hit by the things that we're expected to do or we should do, and we hope, quote unquote, we can just get through it. What we talked about last week was, no, there are actually plenty of things you can do, right? In the moment. So it's more about that, right? Because, if hope is focused on something that is outside of our own domain to actually move towards or do something about, if that's really what it is, then it's probably just going to stay hope, right? Or it has to happen from outside of us, right? In order for it to affect us. And that's not really a great recipe for living an effective life if we're waiting for other things to happen to us all the time, even if we are hopeful for them, right? We have to be able to keep moving. I see this with clients a lot, particularly this time of year, where clients are feeling the weight of the holidays and all of those things that we talked about last week. And they start asking questions like, wow, with all the way the world is and how things are and how difficult these problems are that we face, what's the point of me making sure that every day I get up and brush my teeth and make my bed and get to school or get to work on time? You know, what's the point of all that? And that's the thing, is that's hopelessness taking over, right? But we can easily do the same thing with hope. So that's where it kind of came from.
Okay.
Okay, does that
I
make
like
sense?
it. I think so.
Okay, what does hope mean to you, actually?
What does it mean to me?
I don't know. What do you
think
think of with that?
Well, when I hear the word hope, to me, it sounds like the desire for something that hasn't happened yet, that there is a shred of us that believes it will happen.
Okay.
That thinks that it is a possibility, that it is something to strive for. A lot of times I'm like, I think it's not that we're not totally sold on it, but it's like there is some disbelief in there that can that actually happen. But you're erring on the side of like, I think it will happen. So I have hope that this thing will happen, or I hope to do this or accomplish this or whatnot. Is there some belief in you that it is possible? Yeah.
That's actually a perfect definition of it. It is literally defined as the desire for something and the belief that there is some path forward.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
As opposed to optimism. You know what the difference is? Optimism is the expectation of a positive outcome.
The expectation of a positive outcome.
Optimism is that. So hope is yes, perhaps. Optimism is yes, that's my expectation. Right?
Oh, I'm always optimistic.
You are. You are optimistic, right? But let's, before, I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression here. I'm not saying hope is a bad thing. In fact, it's actually wired into our brains. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
Right. Yes, it is neurologically real. It is. Brain imaging studies show that hope activates, and here we go. I'm going to go full nerd on you. Ready?
Hang on.
The hope activates the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and nucleus accumbens, the same networks involved in motivation and future planning.
Wow.
Yes. So motivation and future planning, that it does look forward. And so hope can serve as a motivator, and you can start future planning with it. Both good things, right? And actually in that sense, hope might be something that's a little more realistic than some cases optimism might be. Optimism is the expectation.
Sure.
Right? Can you be more hopeful for world peace than optimistic that it'll actually happen? Probably, yes. Right? See what I mean?
Yes.
Right, that kind of thing. Now, of course, it's Christmas Eve, right? And through spiritual lenses and symbolically, hope is about expectation, the anticipation, in this case, of deliverance or renewal. These kinds of things can resonate even among non-religious people, right? Notions of renewal, notions of deliverance, notions of change, notions of something that unifies people. The Christian tradition with Christmas hits all of those things, right? And of course, a lot of the secular traditions that have built up around the holiday around the world reflect similar things, right? One thing I like about the hope of the holidays is I do think it's okay to spend time hoping that humanity can continue to grow and move forward, right? That it can continue to adapt and make better choices moving forward. I think it's a good thing, because not having hope in it means there's a good chance you're not going to try and do anything.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So there is that flip side, right, with those. So from that, it can be good. But the problem, I guess, what can happen is culturally, hope can become a proxy for avoidance, right? We can waiting for the right time or the perfect moment, or from a religious point of view, a deliverance to come from the sky, or, something like that. When really, in the end, that can leave us really disappointed.
Sure.
Right? Particularly if we want it all to happen in our own lifetime, right? Which we all tend to, right? It's something I used to ask people, when I my teaching days, I'd ask students like, how many of you would be really excited about world peace if it happened? And they all raise their hand. How many of you would be really excited about world peace if it was going to happen, but it's not going to happen for 250 years?
Like no one raised their hand?
Fewer hands go up.
Really?
Fewer hands go up.
Interesting.
Now, they all eventually do, but they all catch themselves. Like
they're all like...
The first reaction is, oh,
it's not going to.
And then I ask him, well, what's your big question about that? Well, what happens for 250 years? And do we have world peace because we almost all annihilated each other in World War III or World War IV or World War V or whatever it might be? Those are all good questions. Mm-hmm. But we have a tendency to look at hope and hopelessness from a very, very limited lens of our own lifetime, right?
Sure.
That type of thing. Okay, so those are the things. So in that regard, Ashley, what could be some things about hope that holds us back, right?
That holds us back?
Yeah. I didn't mean that to be a quiz. I was just...
It kind of feels like one.
Sorry.
I mean, I guess like in relation to something that is personal is like there's been times where, I'm like, oh man, I'm burning out because of how much is going on with work and life and whatever. And I hope it gets better.
Perfect. Right. But if you hope to get out of burnout without what? Resting.
Yeah. Rest, there's a lot to it. There's like resting and taking like intended action on either delegation or reprioritization or whatnot, all of those things. But right. Hoping alone will not do anything but just cause me to struggle. Right.
I think in relationships, as another example, hoping a relationship improves.
I hope they change.
Without setting new boundaries, without setting expectations, without, setting really clear non-negotiables, right? All those things. You can't all the hope in the world isn't going to change that, right?
Ooh, there's another one that I think, adults can deal with this too, but I think adolescents and young adults probably face this a lot is, I hope I turn into somebody I like, and without them, I guess, consciously realizing it really is up to them if they want to turn into somebody that they like.
Yeah. And how does one do that?
Well, are you asking?
No, I'm just a rhetorical question.
Rhetorical, you're right.
What comes to mind for me is, if you want to build really good self-esteem, do esteemable acts, right? Act accordingly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you want to be someone people respect and they come to for advice, you probably need to become pretty smart and educated in an area where then people could come to,
Right.
If you see motivational speakers and you're like, I love the excitement and the hope that they give people and the inspiration. Well, how did that person become that way? Like if you want to be somebody like that, you have to earn that.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and we hear so much in life about trusting other people in any kind of relationships. And on one hand, we can't force somebody else to trust us. We can say it over and over and over again, right? Every single movie, I think, has the words trust me in it. I need you to trust me. We can't do anything about that. But what we can do is act and behave and speak in a way that is trustworthy consistently, right? And show that. So what does that look like? How do we take the steps in that direction? And that's the thing that we have that's in common with everything we're talking about. They're all actions, right? They're all actions. And so hope for me is always paired with what's the next action, right? All those things, or hope that tomorrow will be different in the workplace, right? If, what, what is there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, even this kind of curtails what we spoke about on our last episode. Like, I hope the holidays are a time of relaxation because I know next year, it's start of the new year and all what comes with that and all, the things that people strive for and what they hope to achieve in a new year, but they also hope that the holidays are calm and relaxing so they can recharge and prepare.
Right. And as we talked about last week, you have to take action if you want them to be restorative and, and restful, that type of thing. Yeah. So essentially what we're saying here, and maybe this would have been easier to summarize at the front end of all this, hope without presence and purpose and a willingness to act is really pretty much just going to stay there, right? And so the feeling of hope is a really good thing. It can be a great motivator. It can help us with future planning, but motivation by itself and future planning are not the actions to move in that direction. Right?
They don't move the needle.
They don't move that needle, right? And so I had somebody once said to me that if you separate those two, hope becomes a waiting room instead of a doorway.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What we want to talk about is how can we treat it as a doorway? Those types of things. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the limits and the strengths of it going forward. How's that sound?
Okay. Sounds great.
Okay, awesome. Well, when we come back from our first break here on Staying Power, we'll jump right into that, and make sure you stick around. Later in the show, Ashley and I will be doing our weekly segment, which this week is 2 Minutes of Terror, which seems odd on Christmas Eve, but nevertheless.
What?
So
It's not.
It's not.
It's
okay.
vulnerable.
It's vulnerable. Okay, 2 minutes.
Connection.
2 minutes of terror in a Christmassy sense, I guess.
Stick around and find out.
Stick around. Please stick around. We'll be back in a minute. Bye.
It's 4 a.m., Monday, and you're literally sucking baby snot through a tube because she's congested. Man, that's love. And if you love her that much, love her enough to make sure she's buckled in the right car seat. To make sure your child's in the right seat for their age and size, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Working hard to put a smile on your face. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hi.
Merry Christmas to all of those who celebrated. It is Christmas Eve as of this recording, so that is pretty fun. Ashley, I hope you have a wonderful holiday, by the way, if I haven't said that.
Thanks, you too. So far, it's going well.
Yeah.
Very excited about
Yeah,
this.
mine too. Happy to be here to be sharing it with all our listeners.
I know. Isn't it exciting?
And so
to be
wherever
here?
you are, and I can say this, wherever you are in the world listening to Staying Power,
Or watching,
we hope you are having a wonderful holiday, whatever that looks like for you. And thank you so much for taking some time to spend with us, because we're certainly grateful and thankful for all of you. So, all right, so let's get into this. The limits of hope, right? The limits of hope, because there are some limits. We just talked about it, right? That's right. Because the last thing we want for hope is it to become passive, painful, or a source of avoiding things.
Okay.
Right? It's an easy thing for it to do, because sometimes hope can turn into magical thinking, right? Right. And magical thinking by itself is not bad, right? Disney is a multi-trillion-dollar empire Harry Potter's great, right? Magical thinking. That's not bad. And these types of themes are in there too. But in almost Harry Potter, we hope Voldemort doesn't come back and wipe out our school, but we might have to do something about it.
That's right.
Right. That kind of thing. So everything comes back to Harry Potter. But nevertheless,
It
might. Right. We also don't want hope to be something that we use as an emotional bypass, right? A shortcut to avoid something difficult or avoid something we can do ourselves. It can get us stuck. And so I think we sort of need to reframe it. Have you ever heard of something, Ashley, called the passive hope trap?
Not like that. What's that mean?
Passive hope trap is a research term that has shown that hope that people have, but if they don't have it paired with perceived agency, like the perception that they have an ability to do something about it, the result is often helplessness, procrastination, and avoidance.
I could see that.
Yeah. Passive hope trap. So I can be hopeful as if hoping just by itself is somehow going to willfully make something happen, right? We don't have a sense of our own agency, not just this conceptual thing like I have agency, but not being able to see how they can apply that. The brain is going to shut back down into helplessness, procrastination, and avoidance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that perceived agency matters a lot. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's really what we're talking about, is how can we avoid that? Another thing we're talking about is, I guess we could call it emotional anesthesia.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Have you know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah. At least I think is you use hope as a way to postpone discomfort. Right?
Exactly.
You're like hoping this thing. And so you're like, I'm sure this is going to be better. I hope it's going to go well and whatnot. And there's like this thing coming that you're like, I see it there and I would like it to not get closer. So I'm just hoping things go really well and it stays over there.
Right. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So instead of like a perceived agency for something like, I hope things get better, would be, I need to set a boundary. The perceived agency is, I can set a boundary.
Sure.
Right. Another one would be, like you said, I hope I stop feeling this way. Whereas the alternative would be, I need support. Right.
Well, and I mean, you could, especially, I would say a lot of time, like we mentioned earlier, it's just like, oh, I hope this changes in my relationship, or I hope they change. I hope they see it this way or whatnot. And I feel like eventually hoping so much, when you do it, like you said, without pairing it with action and agency or whatnot, you're setting yourself up for a major disappointment.
Yeah.
And you know it, whether you want to face that or not. It's like, you know it. But again, you're choosing to lean into the hope instead of realizing, like, just hoping is not going to get me there.
Right. But the hope can feel so good and a lot more secure than the possibility of hope not fulfilling into what you want.
Can you imagine? Right. Because, like, at least hope, this is interesting, hope doesn't have action. So you're less likely to be disappointed because you know you didn't put in any effort that didn't compound into what you want.
I wish we could loop that back right now. I wish we could just put that on a replay.
Oh, thanks.
So I could just put my hand up to my ear and go, say that again. That was
right?
perfect. That's exactly it.
That's just how it makes sense, is because, like, that's why sometimes it's easier to hope, is because you're not putting action. So if it doesn't merit the results that you were working so hard for, you're not disappointed. You didn't let anybody else down because you're like, well, I didn't actually put in any effort.
Somebody else didn't let you
loss.
down. Right.
Yeah.
Somebody else didn't let you down. Right. You don't have to deal with the difficulty of the hope maybe not turning into reality. And the fact of the matter is, that's a reality of hope. That's a possibility. Right. No, that's exactly right. You know, then hope becomes a hiding place. Right. Not just a waiting room.
Yes.
It's a hiding place.
Yes.
Like, you're never intending to leave the waiting room. You just stay there. Yeah. And that's a, boy, how you said that. You know it. You know it deep down. Talk about willfully staying stuck. Wow, that's a good one. You know, and it's, you know, and what's difficult about that too is that, again, part of our hard wiring makes things like avoidance like that really tempting. Because what that does in the brain when we avoid something, it deactivates the emotional part of our brain, the amygdala, that is always tapping on us to do something, right? Or it wants safety or wants clarity. When we avoid it, we just turn that part off. But then we don't engage in the prefrontal cortex, that is the problem solver, action, motivator piece. So we're actually caught between the two parts of our brain that we actually have to be using most of the time in order to move forward in life. So avoidance is literally putting your brain in neutral.
Oof. This isn't a car wash.
No, it's not, because nothing good happens, right? We just sit in neutral, and yet that's no way to drive down the road of life, right? You know, in that sense. So, but that's a problem, because it feels good, right? Or I'd just rather not deal with that right now, right? Rather than hit it head on, you know. And the other side of it too is we can externalize it, right? Because I've seen this happen with clients, and I've seen it happen in my own life. Rather than step out of that comfort zone, the hiding place that you were talking about, we hope someone's going to come in and do it for us. Or circumstances, right? Or some outside entity, some deity, some larger force of nature in the universe is going to do something for us, rather than create opportunities for ourselves, or notice by moving out of the hiding place where those opportunities actually are. That's not to say that those outside things don't exist, but if you're in a hiding place of hope, you're not paying attention to what's out there. You have no idea. You are completely stuck there until either you decide not to hide anymore, or somebody comes and finds you, metaphorically, right? That's a long time can go by.
A lifetime can go by, really.
Yeah, it really can. You know, and of course at the holidays, you know, all this stuff just gets amped up, right? Yeah, it just gets so amped up in the holidays, because this is all the things we're thinking about. And, you know, all the ridiculous commercials that are on, right, of people getting gifts. Like, for example, there's always like wedding ring ones. You always see the jewelry ones,
Yep.
right? Which just slams everybody headlong into those types of things. If they're in no relationship, or if they're in a bad relationship, or they're judging their relationship based on this movie, or the Hallmark movies do
Always.
the same thing.
Yes.
And then for some reason, apparently out in the world, in a world that I don't inhabit, but it clearly must exist somewhere, people are buying cars for their significant others without telling them and putting big bows on them and driving them out to their gigantic cabins in the middle of the woods. Does this happen? Because it seems like it happens a lot.
I only know one person that happened to, which is also weird to say, because before that I'm like, that doesn't happen to anybody, and then I do know one person,
Okay.
but I'm like, but do you know that they like that car?
Yeah, what if they wanted to
bought
get a
a car?
Bought a car.
That's a big purchase.
Yeah, and depending on the nature of your relationship, that might actually be kind of creepy.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's probably in their name who bought it, right? Because the other person wasn't there to sign, so it's their responsibility if the other person doesn't like it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
But
right?
Anyways,
it's just a weird thing. My point is, not so
I
much
like
about
the ones
cars.
where they get puppies and kittens.
Puppies and kittens, those are okay.
That's my commercial.
Those make more sense, right?
do one
People
of
actually
those.
get that actually happens.
That
But
does happen.
those messages
Yes.
just assault us this time of year. We get hopeful for those things, and then if we don't get them, right, or if they don't happen, we can suddenly feel like we're doing something wrong.
Sure.
Or we can feel like fate or the universe or God has abandoned us.
Right.
That
Or,
type of
something is wrong with our life because we don't have the perfect spread on the table
Right.
and all the family there and everyone's getting along and, the dog's barking and the kids are running around, like the whole 9 yards that you see and all of these. And it's not very often you see commercials that are the actual reality that people have.
Yeah. And so every once in a while they pop up, and they're usually the ones that just punch us right in the gut, right? And you're like, oh, that's beautiful. And so there are some examples of that, right? And so, but man, the tension that can create in the body, the stress that can create, along with everything else like we talked about last week, right, can put us in a hopeful framework. But then it's easy to I'm just going to sit and hope because it's a lot more comfortable to sit here and inoculate myself from everything else. So instead of that, I'm suggesting we reframe it a little bit, right? And again, this is anchored in neuroscience, but also in our experience, right? All these things. Hope works best when it's anchored to, obviously we talked about action, right? But what are our values, right? So Ashley, pick a value. Like what's one of your most important?
One of my most important, probably honesty.
Honesty, right? So how to hope and honesty? Like if you're going to, because honesty requires, that's an action value. It doesn't surprise me at all. That's high for you, right? It is high. It's actually like your number 2 one, I think, if I remember. That's action, right? Honest with yourself, honest with others.
It's a really uncomfortable value.
It is. So if you're going to anchor hope in honesty and honesty in hope, what would that do for hope for you? What does that do?
Well, that, including an action of being honest, because that could look so many ways. I think when you hear like honesty, it's like, oh, just always speaking the truth to people, which that is part of it. There is the piece of being honest with yourself about things and what does that mean and what are you going to do with that. There is the honesty of who you are behind closed doors when nobody else sees you. And if you hope to be a certain type of person, then in this aspect of being honest with yourself, you have to be honest about the other parts of yourself that you don't want to see. And if you hope to be so great, well, you have to address all of you.
You have to take action.
Yes, you have to take some action with that.
Exactly.
And address them and start addressing them with yourself first until that becomes more comfortable and acceptable, and then maybe address it with another person and share something like that. Exactly.
Yeah, that's really well explained. For me, if I took kindness, one of my highest values, and put hope with that, kindness for me, I truly believe is the one thing we all deeply desire to receive and give out on the regular. And that a lot of the things that we struggle with are because we're either not getting it or we haven't learned how to give it out, or something in there has been difficult. So for me to pair kindness and acting kind towards myself, towards other people, I connect hope to that is by doing that more often, I give myself and other people that I'm kind to more of an opportunity to grow in that direction, more towards the things that they feel will bring them the most meaning and the most value. And by extension, then that helps everybody around them. So, but that involves me acting kindly.
Yes, it does.
Which means kind words to myself, kind words to others, kind actions. And you're right, same thing. If I'm kind to everybody else, but I'm not kind to myself behind closed doors, that's going to limit that. And whatever hope is tied to that may not become a reality if I'm not being kind to myself in regards to that. So anchoring it in values, I think, is a big one, right? If we're going to reframe that. So, it connects to almost any value, right? In that sense. What else? Let's see. Anything come up for you?
Well, I'm trying to think, maybe you have an example of this too, of like where we were hopeful about something and we waited because, again, the waiting room, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything, does anything come to mind of like something where you were just hoping and you're waiting?
Of course. I actually have several things that have come to mind, but I haven't picked yet. Can you go first?
Okay.
Yeah, first.
Usually mine always end up in the relationship realm.
Yes.
I think that's always very relatable.
Those are the ones that
too,
come
right?
up for me
I mean,
too.
it always does. And I have some in other realms too. But, I do remember like at one period of time this was like a handful of years ago, but in a relationship and it, again, wasn't quite going great. And I was just hopeful that I was working on my stuff, but I was hopeful that they were working on their side of things and that they would grow up a little bit more and start taking life a little more seriously. And they didn't. And it finally like hit me square in the face one day that I'm like, okay, the hope I have and the actions I'm doing are working on my side, but they're not affecting the other half of the relationship. And hoping at this point is like mute point because it's not doing anything anymore. And it ended up, it was like I terminated the relationship and it was a lot better. Life got better. But I had a lot of hope, that things would be okay. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to make sure that I'm always hitting the mark and being a good partner and doing all the things and so on and so forth. And then maybe me doing it will inspire them also to do it. And,
right.
And none of that worked. And eventually I spent more time in hindsight looking back than I would have liked to, hoping and waiting that it would get better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can think of several examples. A lot of them are relational, but I think one that stands out to me made all those relational ones work out better in the long run. And, longtime listeners of the show know that, a number of years ago, I spectacularly, wrecked my life, and addiction was a big part of that. And a lot of things happened that brought that to bear outside of my control. And I had to make some choices, right? I had to decide, okay, based on everything I know, everything I've grown up to believe, all the actions I know how to take, this is the result. I've ended up here. Now, a lot of that, a lot of sitting in that time period in addiction is hoping something's going to save you, right? Once it was no longer possible, and that was clear, I had a choice to make. Am I willing to take steps to work towards a better version of me that I always wanted people to believe existed? Am I willing to do that?
Wow.
And once I started doing that, things became better. It took a while.
Okay.
Became better. So yeah, that's the big one.
Really great example.
That's the big one. Okay. That's really good to bring up, I think. Both those examples, all those were great. All right, so let's take our second break. When we come back, Ashley and I will have our weekly segment. This week it is 2 Minutes of Terror. And then we will talk about some practical things on this Christmas Eve to kind of wed together that hope and that action, moving that forward, and see what that does for you building your better life. We'll be back in just a second.
Man, I love my kids so much. I once sat for 3 hours in the cold rain to watch her soccer team lose by 18 goals.
I love my kids so much, I once used a tube to suck snot out of her stuffed nose at 3 a.m.
You win.
Love your kids? Love them enough to make sure they're in the right car seat. From toddlers to tweens, visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to find the right seat for their age and size. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Real people, real life, real radio. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power on this Christmas Eve. JD here with Ashley.
Hi.
And we hope that you're having a wonderful holiday wherever in the world you are. And thank you for spending part of your holiday with us.
Just imagine people are probably traveling and listening to us right now.
I know. It's kind of
exciting.
fun. Yeah, it is exciting. It is exciting. And if that is happening, by the way, why don't you write into us at stayingpowershow@gmail.com when you get a chance and let us know where you are or where you were listening to this. It might be interesting to learn about that. Okay. Before we get into some practical things about turning hope into action on this Christmas Eve, let's do our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take 2 minutes to talk about something that happened in the past week, share what we learned from it, and all in the name of vulnerability and connection. Keys to building a better life. Here we go. 2 minutes of terror.
Oh my gosh.
Homer.
That's so funny. Okay.
All right.
Oh, mine.
All right. So
well,
go ahead.
As I expressed slightly on our last episode that I work in healthcare, and being that it's this time of year where, I mean, everyone's not feeling good because it's like they're not feeling good because they're sick, or, you know, they're not feeling good because no one knows what's going to happen with like health insurance next year and what that's going to mean for them. And the cost of everything is going through the roof now. And it is really difficult to be in the industry when people's health really needs help and care and support. And what they normally relied on is pretty much no longer there.
Ooh.
And having to be constantly kind of stuck in the middle of that and facing a lot of people and serving a lot of people. And also managing people. Like, I'll be honest, these last couple of weeks have not been my most favorite just because of the amount of stress and stuff that is constantly put on my plate that I'm like, this is a lot. And it really takes its toll on me on a daily.
I can imagine. Pretty exhausted at the end of the day?
Yeah. I had like...
Fed up?
Yeah, sometimes I just want to smack somebody. And I don't know who it is. Just somebody, something. I don't know. There's a lot of pent up emotion and it's frustration. And it's like, you know, like on behalf of those other people, but then also me being like the verbal punching bag for other people when I'm like, this is not my, like, I can't do anything. I want to help you, but I can't or whatnot. Yeah,
you're in a really tough spot because you're managing people behind the desks, right? But then you're supposed to be the model for everybody on the other side of the desk coming in the door.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you're the person who's getting hit by traffic going both directions.
Well, and yes. And I also, it really just kind of dawned on me recently that like I am such a focal point in my office that like my mood will set the tone for the office. So that's another responsibility of like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm doing okay.
Oh man. So how are you dealing with that?
Well, one day at a time.
As best you can.
As best I can.
Yeah. Talking about it help at all?
It does. It does. Yeah.
It's one of those things that I mentioned kind of jokingly a couple of weeks ago. I talked about our calls on your way into the studio, how you just vent for 10 minutes. I think it's helpful.
It does. I mean, sometimes, it's good. But there is a line where it's like, okay, is it helpful or am I just griping?
Or are you just feeding the beast?
Yes, right, am I just retelling stories? But anyways, that's mine.
Okay.
What you got?
Well, my longtime friends will tell you if I'm around somewhere with them, there's a good chance, don't be surprised if an emergency happens. Not because I seem to cause emergencies, but because they always seem to happen in front of me.
Oh.
And yeah, various kinds. I have a whole story about it. I should write a book about it, honestly, because
thought you were writing a book.
I am writing books, but nevertheless, this will be another one. So file it away. Episode 103, everybody. Don't let me forget. But I had an emergency situation like that happen right in front of me earlier this week. A man collapsed and hit his head hard.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was rough. I wasn't the only person around. There were several other people around. But he fell, he hit his head pretty hard, and I just kind of took over. I just kind of did. Now, the people who were there, unfortunately, one of them knew exactly what to do in terms of, making sure he's not moving, getting him on his side if all possible. I called 911 and kind of talked them through it. They talked me through what I needed to do. The person was giving me pulse readings and things like that. And then, of course, everybody got there. And by the time they got there and they were working on him for a while, he started to respond. It was clear he was probably going to be okay, but they took him off to the hospital, and that was that. So it was like a 20-minute thing. And you would think, having been around these things a few times, right, that I would be used to that or be more used to that. Now, maybe some people think that, but I was not. And it was when it was over, it had those about a 10, 15-minute period where I was just rattled. Like, oh, man, because when he fell, I'm not going to lie, I thought he had really, really, really hurt himself, right?
Sure.
So thankfully, the human body is robust or his head was really, really thick. And
he's a stubborn one.
Yeah, a stubborn one. But it was just kind of a scary thing to go through right in the middle of something, right? And it just always reminds me, it's like, you have no idea what can happen in front of you and, that you have to respond to right away. And there's always something about that when we're reminded of it, at least for me, that can just unnerve me for a little while.
Sure. Because we see so much stuff in movies and on TV and stuff all the time that's like horrific.
Right.
You become so numb to it. But when it actually happens and somehow it happens in your life experience where it's like, oh, I'm now kind of responsible to do something.
Yeah.
That's very jarring.
It is out of our experience. And none of us who were there, we were sort of talking about it afterwards, like, okay, well, that was a different part of my day than I expected, So anyway, that was mine. So
all right.
Fortunately, everything seemed to work out just fine.
Glad it all worked out.
Yeah, it did. Okay, so now let's talk about on this Christmas Eve, a bit of a Christmas Eve reframe, if you will. Let's call it active hope. Ashley?
Okay.
Rather than hope as a passive thing that we can fall into, let's talk about active hope. We gave some examples last time. And by that, building a hope, it's grounded, it's embodied, connected to real next steps. These are all things we like to do. So practical tools on that. So if we're going to talk about principles of active, intentional hope, where could we start?
I would say that you need to start with your reality and the facts and the cold hard truth and not be in denial about it.
Okay.
I mean, like, if you're really going to start somewhere, you got to start with square one. You got to know where you're at.
Yeah. Right.
And really take a look and be like, well, even if I don't like it, like, this is what is true right now. And let's accept that as reality. And then we can proceed forward.
Yep. So you have to be right here in this moment, in reality, presence, and then hope follows from that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, and I would say even to the extent of when you're trying to just distinguish for yourself, and it's best to say it out loud, talking to yourself about this is true right now.
Yeah.
So maybe say what you say matters, how you say it matters. So if you're, New Year's coming up, you're like, I want to have a fitness goal or something like that. And you're talking about your reality to yourself right now to make it very real, to set yourself up for the success of all the action you're going to take, is not to use words that are going to tear yourself down and make you feel terrible about yourself.
Right.
Just stick with facts. Leave the emotions off to the side for the moment.
Yep. That's the perfect starting point. And then my idea builds right off of that. Hope without action, hope based in that reality. Hope without action is just fantasy.
Yeah.
That's it. It just stays there. That's the hiding place. That's the waiting room. Hope has to be linked to our own agency, to our ability to make choices, difficult ones sometimes, uncomfortable ones, unclear ones, uncertain ones, but it has to be connected to that, right? Because otherwise, it's just going to sit out there and do Well, you know what's going to happen. You said it so eloquently in the last segment, right? Mm-hmm. So it's got to be there. Otherwise, it's just fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's true. It comes down to like, how do you actually want to show up, and how do you intend to show up, and what do you plan to do, and not just what you expect, right? It's not optimism,
right?
Where we have the expectation. It is like there is a level of responsibility in it.
There
you
is.
Can't shy away from it.
Yeah. And there's a recognition and hope that it might not happen, but you have to take action in order to find out. Mm-hmm. You really do. So, what else comes up for you?
I think it's good to identify really about it. I mean, again, speaking out loud of the thing to yourself, but to really identify what it would do for you if what you're hoping for happens or comes true.
That's an interesting idea. Go say more.
Because depending on what it is, like some people are like, oh, I hope to have a new job next year or something. Okay, great. And
what do you want that to do?
What do you want that to do for you? If you had a new job, would it open up new doors? Would it cause you to grow and evolve? Is it another job that just is higher monetary benefit? Or do you hope to have a job that's going to be so uncomfortable because it's going to make you grow?
Yeah.
So much. I mean, as an example, I have definitely grown a lot in my job, occupation, life. And I think if you would have told me 4 or 5 years ago, like, hey, this is where you're going to end up, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds great. She's confident. She's well-spoken. She can handle a room. She can carry herself well. She's got confidence. She knows herself. She knows where she stands and who she is. And I love all that. And if you were to be like, cool, here's all the other stuff you got to do to become that person that you hope to become. If I saw all of it, would I be like, yeah, still sign me up?
Right.
I probably would have been like, you sure? Is that really what I want now? Because I don't know, because all those things look awful to go through. And, you really have to know that that's what you really want, and that you're kind of willing to go through all the crap that's going to happen to get there.
And in some cases, you may not even know what that is, but you know it's going to be crap. So, yeah, absolutely. I like that one a lot. The last thing I would add to this is remember that hope is a relational thing. Hope is not just about individual action. It's also about other people, right? If we hope for things to get better around us, we can certainly start with that in ourselves, but the whole point eventually is for that to filter into our relationships and help all those grow. It's relational. We need support to do those things, and it's easy to hide in the hiding place. Oftentimes it takes people to come along and say, it's okay for you to step out. You don't have to hide anymore. Why don't you just come out into the light a little bit, and we'll take the next steps, right? So I think that's a big one. Okay, practical tools, exercises, anything that you like to do that's helpful for you in terms of turning hope into action?
Well, I do love a good list. I love a good list. Love one. So that's what I do with stuff. Like if it's something I'm hoping for, I am hoping to achieve, I'm hoping to become, I'm hoping to accomplish, so on and so forth, I will actually like write down, and it's not super detailed and it's not really long, but I will write down things that are required to get there. If I envision myself as a particular type of person next year, I'm like, great, I want to improve my speaking ability. Well, how am I going to do that? Okay, well, let's write these things down. So here's some things that I could do to improve my speaking ability, or whatever it might be.
Right.
To actually like take the actionable steps of writing that down and then revisit them often.
Yeah.
Because becoming a great speaker won't just happen by accident. And
got to practice.
You got to practice it. And then you either need to put yourself in position to practice it, or you need to find ways to do that.
Yep. I like it. Writing things down. Mine is similar, to start with that. It's the hope plus one step. Make that list and then ask yourself, what's the one action on this list that I can take today that aligns with the hope that I have of what I hope to achieve? What's the one step? That's all you got to do. Just one. And an example like yours is perfect. What's that next step? I need to research places I can learn to do this. Do that. Next step, I need to call one of these places. Next step, I need to save up some money in order to do this. Right? Or I need to, those types of things, because taking those steps What's nice about that is one step can lead to more once you get it moving, right? And then momentum can build. I think that's a big one. Another one that fits with that is the reality check ritual, right? What's getting in the way of me not taking these steps? Here's, I want to do that. What's getting in the way? And what do I need to do with that? What is true of this today? And the truth might be, this is a really hopeful list, but I'm not really acting on it. Write that part down. What can I do to step away from that sort of spiral today? Doing that. Once again, writing it down, speaking it out loud makes it real for our brains more than anything else. It's not just our thoughts. If our thoughts took care of all those things by themselves, we wouldn't be here talking about anything.
Yeah, we would have accomplished it all, right?
Right, exactly. And then, there's lots of other things. We talk about breathing and grounding and all those things, those do matter. But I think for considering the day this is, right? I think we should do something that I'll call the Christmas Eve intention exercise.
Okay.
All right. So instead of hoping for a different tomorrow, let's choose one of these. Okay. Tell me which one of these resonates most for you.
Okay.
How you want to feel tomorrow, how you want to show up tomorrow, what you want to release tonight.
Ooh.
They're all pretty good.
Really good.
I'll say those again. How do you want to feel tomorrow? How do you want to show up tomorrow? What do you want to release tonight?
Ooh. I think I like that one. What do you want to release tonight?
Okay, that's the one I like. Maybe because it's still Christmas Eve. I do dig Christmas Eve, by the way. I think Christmas Eve is cool.
Yeah.
I like the
Why?
feel of it. I just like the feel of it. I like the songs. I like the kind of the quiet that descends. I like the reflection.
Twinkle lights.
Yep, I like all that stuff. Yep. But this is a good one. What do you release? So what would it be for you? Can you think of something?
Snap.
I know, on the spot.
I might have to think of that one. Do you have one?
What comes to mind, I would like to release anxiety about next steps and take more action. As you know, and as listeners know, I have a lot of things going on that I do. They all involve next steps all the time. Sometimes my anxiety or my stress can get in the way of that, and slow me down. I'd like to release having to do everything perfectly and just take them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think I would release a little bit of the judgment that I have, or I guess like the exceptionally high standard that I hold myself to.
Okay. Self-judgment, you mean?
Yeah, I guess that might be what I would call it.
Okay.
But there's a lot of times like I'll mull over a day. I'm like, how did I show up that day? And like, okay, you could have done better here. You should have done better here. I know I visually saw how I impacted somebody that way. Was that the best?
Got it.
Which is good for like mental note taking of how can I improve. But it depends on how far you take that.
Right. Ours have a little bit in common, don't they?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. Well, once again, the Christmas Eve intention exercise. How do you want to feel tomorrow? How do you want to show up tomorrow? What do you want to release tonight? So release it tonight in the hope of feeling and showing up a certain way tomorrow. And not only for tomorrow being Christmas Day, but you can say that to yourself every single day. All right. Ashley, thank you so much for coming in on Christmas Eve.
Thank you, JD. And thank you to all of our listeners and our viewers for hanging out with us.
Yep.
As we prepare to spend some hopefully glorious time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hope that you have a wonderful holiday wherever you are. We will be back next week on New Year's Eve. It just keeps coming. Another Eve to talk a little bit more about how we can build a better life going into 2026. We will see you next week. I am JD.
I'm Ashley.
And we wish you a Merry Christmas to all who celebrate. Take care.